Now, when it comes to building WooCommerce websites, sometimes you just want to go above and beyond the default setup that your theme offers, or with the customization options that Elementor Pro provides you. In this video, I want to demonstrate a couple of plugins that I think are really going to help you break free from what the normal websites look like using WooCommerce and any of those original tools. My name is Paul C, and welcome to WPTuts, the channel where we create beautiful WordPress websites together. If this is your first time on the channel, please consider subscribing and smashing that bell icon below to become part of the WP crew and be notified every time new content is added. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some plugins that allow us to get a bit more creative with WooCommerce. As you can see from the screen that we've got in front of us, I've got various different sections all set up in a nice block grid. If I scroll down the page, you can see that we've got the latest product section showing 8 of the latest products. If I mouse over these, we've got a nice effect which I can then jump straight through to the product, or I can add it to my basket. So it's a really nice way of doing things. Now, this is not part of the theme. This is all being built through customization and part of this new plugin that I want to show you. So what is the plugin? Well, it's a couple of plugins from Crocoblock, or Zemez as they're called. So these are the Jet elements, the Jet Woo Builder, and so on. We're going to be using 2 of those today because I think in conjunction with each other, they give us a real ton of options to get creative. Now, first off the bat, I just want to say this is not a sponsored video. This is something that I'm doing myself. I've been testing these plugins out, and I've got to be honest, I think some of the things that they offer are fantastic. So without further ado, let's take a look at what we can do with this. We're going to come over into our dashboard, and as you can see, I've got some pages set up. Now I'm going to come through and we're going to create this from scratch. I've got a couple of products set up in here and a couple of categories set up for my products. Nothing you wouldn't already have as part of a typical WooCommerce online shop. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new page. Now you can use this as a page, or you could build it out as templates if you wanted to. I want to keep this really simple and just use pages for now. So we're going to say add new. We'll just simply come in and we'll tag in a test page. Shopping page. Okay, we're going to come down now. I'm using Ocean WP as my theme, but this is theme agnostic. It doesn't matter what theme we're using. All I'm going to do is specify that I want this to be 100% full width and I don't want to have any margins. Nothing else. This is just something that's specific to Ocean WP. I'll hit publish on there, and once we've done that, we can then jump into Elementor and start making the edits. So jump over to Elementor. What we're going to do is we're going to use 2 different plugins for this. We're going to be using Jet Product Gallery and Jet Woo Builder. These are 2 plugins that are part of the Crocoblock plugin suite, or you could purchase these independently. I'll drop the links in the description below so you can check them out yourself and decide if you think there's something you want. You can use those links to grab them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just close some of these panels down on the left-hand side. I don't want any of those. All we want to use are the plugins from Jet Woo Builder and Jet Product Gallery. Okay, so you can see we've got some different options inside here. We've got the category grid, product list, product grid, and taxonomy tiles. Now, taxonomy is where we're going to use either tags or we're going to use the categories. So what I'm going to do is drag and drop this into our design. You can see that now pre-fills out some information, pulling in from the categories that we've got. Now I've assigned some images to these categories, and you can see that I've got uncategorized, which doesn't have an image associated with it. Now all the images are, when you create a category inside WooCommerce itself, you can assign an image to that category, and then when you use any kind of category layouts, it'll show that image. That's exactly what I've done here. You can see now on the left hand side we've got a range of different layouts we can choose from, so we can just go through, pick the ones that we want that we think are going to look nice inside our design, and I'm simply going to go for the option that I think I like, which, let's try this one out, see what that looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. I like the look of that. You can see now it says show count, so we can show the count of the number of products inside any of those categories. You can see it says uncategorized 0, consultation and so on 0. We can also go through and we can take that off by using some sort of styling on there a little later on. What we can also do is we can just adjust the height of these elements. So I'm going to set this to something like 550. What I will also do is come into our row, and I'm going to set this to be full width because I want this to sort of span the entire width of our layout, and also come in and just make sure that I've got no margins or padding assigned to this, just to make sure that everything is just nice and neat and tidy. Okay, let's come back onto the element itself. So you can see we've got the main box width, which we can adjust to get this to look exactly how we want. So again, a nice way of making sure that we can style things to look pretty cool on the layout that we're working with. So I'll set that to 50. We've then got the option to say, what do we want to show? Now, currently we're showing categories, but we can, if we want to, choose tags. If we choose tags, you can see we can come in and we can start adding in the taxonomy IDs to exclude and all those different kinds of things. So we've got some really cool control options in there. I'll set that back to categories. I'm going to choose to hide uncategorized. I don't want that to be used on there. And you can see now that immediately updates and removes that for us. You can see we've got things like show on ID. We can exclude taxonomy, so we could just drop in any numbers that are associated with that taxonomy. And we can also come in and choose to sort them based upon their order or their name. So we can have ascending, descending, name, IDs, counts, and so on. So very cool. If you want to tweak this to get exactly what we want to display, we can do that at this point. We can then come down and we can enable or disable the count. So I'm going to just disable that. I'm not interested in showing that. We then got the option for title max length in words, descriptions, and so on. So we can set that up and tweak to get exactly what we want there. If we jump to the Style tab, we've got a ton of options inside the Style tab, which allows us to configure and style this exactly as we want. So at the moment, you can see when we mouse over, we get no indication that anything's going to happen other than we get the little pointy finger. But we can easily come in and tweak that, and we'll do that in a moment. Before I do that, I just want to adjust the gaps between the boxes. So you can see I can easily use the slider, tweak this to get exactly what I want. So I'm going to drop a 10 pixel value in there. If we want to assign borders, we can do that. Border radiuses, box shadows, all those kinds of good things. We'd also adjust the alignment of any of these different elements. You can see we've got the horizontal and the vertical alignment. So we could center these if we want to for the text, left align, right align, whatever we want. Adjust the padding, all those kinds of things. We've got the box overlay then for normal and hover. So you can see if I just choose the normal option and I just choose a color on there, you can see it immediately shows us that color. We can adjust the transparency. Anything we want to make sure this fits in with the design aesthetic that we're trying to get for our particular WooCommerce site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to be fairly dark so we can kind of see what we're doing. We still see the image, but we've got some kind of overlay effect we can use. Then I'll jump up to the hover section. Same again, just come in, choose the colors we want, and I'll set this to be lighter. So when we mouse over, we'll get a nice effect that'll lighten the image but still allow us to get some contrast no matter what image is going to be used on there, so it'll make our text stand off a little nicer. We could, if we wanted to, apply an image on there if we wanted. There's an overlay effect, entirely up to you for the normal or the hover effect. So you can get creative to your heart's content there. You've also then got the box hover, so we can do things like set different backgrounds for the text. So for example, the content, you can see the background color. We could just change that to be something like green or blue, and you can see we go over that now. The actual title for the category or the tag, if we're using tags, will now have a background color. So we'll clear that from there. What we will do though is come to the title and we'll set that to be white. And we'll also do the description to be white if it's being used. So we've got those kinds of set up. Color is irrelevant, we're not using that. So now when we mouse over, you can see we now get the text highlights in white. So we come down to the content itself. We can also go through and do things like change background colors, border types, and so on here. We can also set the typography color. So we'll set that to be white as well, so that stands off. We don't need to have that hover effect, but if you want it, as you can see, it is there for you. Again, you can see you've got options there for the product count. So if we were using that, we can specify whether that's being displayed inline or as a block. We can adjust the color, backgrounds, all those kinds of things. Same for the description. So now what we have is a nice visual way of going through to the different sections of our site, which we can fine tune. So if we had a section that was for consultation or for suits or things like that, we could then just limit these sections that are going to display at the top of the page to be only ones that sit inside that particular category. So subcategories, whatever you want. You can fine tune it, or as we've done here, basically leave it just to show all the different options, the first four or the last four, however we sort of set this up to display. That's just scratching the surface of what you could do with this. You could get really creative with this, but I think it's a lovely visual way of making the top of your page or the bottom of your page or anywhere throughout your site look a little bit more interesting and draw people's attention in to make them jump through to the relevant sections of your site. So that's the first part. The next thing we want to do is take a look at how we can set up and configure the way we display some products. So now that we've set up the taxonomy tile section, the next thing we're going to do is put our product grid in. So let's just scroll down a little bit, and we've come back onto the Jet Woo Builder. You can see we've got the categories grid, we've got the product list, and the product grid. We've already done the taxonomy tiles. What we're interested in is the products grid. So let's drag and drop that down to the next section. You can see that now pre-fills this out with the first design, and it looks pretty cool to start off with. So what we can do is we can take a look at the left-hand side and all the different configuration options and tools that we have available. So as you can see, we've got a range of different presets. I can choose from those, and it'll pull in the predefined styles. So we can just choose any of these presets and use those straight out of the box if we wanted to. So you can see already some nice visual ways of displaying your products. We can adjust the number of columns that are going to be displayed, so we can set those between 1 and 6. And we can also specify the number of columns going to be displayed, or the number of products. See, at the moment it says 3. Let's just set that to be 8. And you can see now that will display the products. We've set this up to be 2 lines, 4 columns, so there's our 8 products. And if we want to, we can come down, choose any of these preset styles just to get everything looking the way that we want it to look. Make everything look pretty cool, nice and nicely laid out. So you can see this is one of the options, and this is the one I've showed you in the demonstration at the beginning of this video. But as you can see, we need to style some elements on there. There's a couple of things we need to do at the moment. The text doesn't really stand off the background. We've got no overlay effect, but the basics are there. We can now go through and fine tune and tweak. So with those things already set up for us, you can see we can take a look at the options on the left-hand side now and see all the configuration tools we have. And believe me, there are a lot. So we can specify things like the number of columns based upon the device it's being viewed on, as you would normally expect with most things inside Elementor and Elementor Pro. We can specify equal column height, so if you've got products that have longer or shorter descriptions, those kinds of things, you can make sure that everything looks good no matter what is being displayed. Also got things like adding gaps between columns, between rows. If we disable those, you can see we just basically get everything sitting flush together. If you want that kind of style, you can do that. I don't particularly want that in this particular instance. We can also go through and query the products. You can see we've got query products by everything. In other words, it's displaying all the products. If we click and expand that out, you can see we can choose from things like featured, sale, from a specific category, any of those kinds of good things. So we can really go in and fine tune exactly what's going to be displayed inside this particular page section. So if you are creating custom pages or custom templates, you can easily use these query options to make sure that you only pull in the relevant information. So again, really cool. We'll leave that as is for now. Order by, as you can see, we've got a range of different options to choose from for date, price, random, sale, all those kinds of things. We'll leave it set a date. Do we want to show the product title? So you can see when we mouse over, we disable that, we go over, we now take off the product name. We'll put that back on. We can also restrict the number of words that are going to be used. We can choose what image is going to be used to pull in for this particular section. So you can see, depending upon the theme that you've got and the options you may have set up, you may see different options to what we've got displayed on screen at the moment, but you have tons of options to choose from. So make sure you pick one that's going to look good on the device or devices and the screen resolution you want this to work on. Now, I don't need to go through every option on here. I think most of them are fairly self-explanatory. One of the things I do think is quite nice is we can show badges. So if you've got items on sale, you can specify exactly what word you want to have as that badge text, which is quite nice. If you want display excerpts, you can do that and control the number of sort of words and things you want to display on there. And as you can see, tons of other cool options on there, including the option to use default Ajax add to cart styles. We also have the option for carousel. Now, if we choose a carousel, let's just say, for example, you had 12 products were in limited space, you could use the carousel option. We'll enable that, and you can see that immediately now creates a nice carousel, which we could easily jump through to the next product, and so on, still retaining that hover effect that we've got set up that we chose as our first style under the General tab. So when you want to display a range of products, but you don't have tons of space, this is a really good option to choose from. Again, you've got options for things like the number of slides to scroll. So we could set that to be 4, for example, and that would show 4, then slide over another 4 to show the next 4, and so on and so forth. You can then control the type of arrow that's going to be used, show the dots for navigation, pause on hover, so it just stays there. Someone's looking at it and they think, oh, actually, I quite like that particular suit. It won't automatically transition to the next 4 to whatever you set it up to do. And obviously, it's not working inside this demo sort of screen when we're inside Elementor itself, but on the live site, it works perfectly well. So we've got things like autoplay, the duration, infinite loop, and so on. Tons of really cool options in there. So let's just disable that and go back to our normal grid view. Now let's just go over the Style tab, and you can see there are a lot of options in here to control exactly how everything looks. So right the way down, so we've got mouse over effects, so we can just choose things like overlays. So you can say, On hover, we want to set a background color. So we could say we want to set that to be quite a dark gray, semi-transparent. When we mouse over, we now get that effect. As you can see, some of the text still isn't showing. The button and the text for the actual price stand off quite nicely. So we can come into things like the title, and we can say we want to put the font color in there, and we set that to hover. As you can see, automatically picks up now the styling for the title, and we can just go through and adjust this for padding, margins. We can do with the title, the sort of buttons, all those kinds of things. You have options to control and tweak and adjust everything for this. It is straight out of the box, incredibly easy to use. So before we move on to the individual product, let's just take a look at this page just to make sure it looks the way we expect it to. Let's preview our changes and let that load in. As you can see, there's our different sections at the top, all nice and neat. The hover effect we've set up all works perfectly. Come over and you can see all of our different products now are available to us. If we click on the product name, that'll take us over to the product page itself. And as you can see, I've already done some work on here, but one thing we're missing is the actual image of the product itself, or the multiple images. So let's see how we can rectify that with Jet Product Gallery, another one of these Crocoblock or Jet plugins. So we're going to come back over into Elementor. We finished with this page. I'm going to close that down, exit back to our dashboard, and we're going to take a look at the page that we've got set up. It's a template page. So we're going to take a look at that and how we can control the different galleries that we want to display inside there. To do that, we simply jump over to Elementor templates. Once we're inside there, we're going to come to the single product template. As you can see, there's our custom men's clothing. Let's come in and edit that with Elementor, and we can start taking a look at how we can customize this. So for this, we're going to be using the Jet Product Gallery plugin. You can see we've got 4 different options. We've got the Gallery Anchor Navigation, Gallery Grid, Slider, and Modern. You can choose any of those options, and each one has a range of different settings you can use. I'm going to keep this really simple. We're just going to use the gallery grid for this example, but I'd highly recommend if you do get this, there are some great options available with these other different sort of settings and options we have. Let's drag that in there. You can see that automatically pulls in the images that are associated with the product that we're currently viewing. And on the left-hand side, we can now go through and we can control exactly what is done with these images and how they're displayed. So we can do things like enable the gallery. We can enable zoom. Now these have different sort of things to do on this. So for example, the zoom does exactly what its name suggests. It allows us to zoom in on that product image. And as you can see, it looks okay, but these images are a bit small. So we'll just disable that for now. The enable gallery option allows us to click and it'll open up a preview or larger preview of this image, and we can then scroll through to the next product image, the next product image, and so on. So it's very, very cool, very simple, but like I say, very, very easy to work with. Come to the images, you can see we can control the image sizes, and again we've got the option to choose what images do we want to use to make sure we get great looking quality images. So I'm going to say medium large for this just to make sure they look good. Columns, we can set this to whatever we want, and again we've got the options to set it up based upon the device that's being used. So you can set it up to 3, for example, on a desktop, right the way down to 1 on a mobile device. Whatever you kind of want to do. So once we've done that, you can see we can change this, we'll adjust it, and you can see if we set that to 2, it now displays it in a 2x2 grid. If we come down to the gallery option, we now have a range of different options available in this. So we can say show full screen, zoom, share, show counter, arrows, and so on. If we have videos as part of our product, we can come in and control how the video is set up. So we can do display the video in the content as a pop-up. What aspect ratio do you want to use, whether it autoplays, loops, any overlays, the play button, all those kinds of good things. So like I say, you've got a ton of different controls to make sure that everything looks the way you want it to. If we jump into the Style tab, we can control the column gutter. We can jump into the images, and you can see we can apply borders if we want to those, box shadows, easily put a shadow on every single product. We'll just disable that. Background colors, padding. We've also got the option to enhance things with the photo swipe. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but the option is there if you want to use that particular JavaScript functionality. Video pop-up button, how do we want that to work? How do we want it to look? All those kinds of good things. And also the play button, we can control the way everything looks on there. Under the advanced section, as you'd expect, you've got things like your scrolling effects, background, and so on. All the normal kinds of things. So it's very, very easy to set this up to look the way that you want with any of those 4 different layouts. So let's just update that. We'll jump back over to our test page, which had nothing in there whatsoever. We'll refresh that. And we should then see that we now end up with those 4 images. Everything's looking pretty cool. We've got our sections at the top. our 4 images. We can click, and you can see now we can see a bigger version of that particular product. All looks really cool. If we can click, open it up, view a nice sort of larger version of that particular product image. So it's incredibly easy to work with, but it allows us to get a lot more creative than what you get straight out of the box with Elementor Pro. Now, what I do like about this is if you want to grab access to all of the plugins and really expand what you can do with Elementor Pro and Elementor, Crocoblock is a great option. However, if you only want to download and purchase the specific plugins that you want out of the entire suite, you could do that and potentially save yourself some money. Now, when Crocoblock originally launched, I wasn't overly impressed by some of the options. They were missing some of the key things that I thought they needed. However, recently they've been bringing out a lot of updates and they've expanded some of the core tools that they have. And I think with the inclusion of what I've just shown you today, this really does open up some of the great things you can do using Elementor or Elementor Pro alongside Crocoblock to create much more engaging WooCommerce based websites. You're not limited to only WooCommerce, you can do a ton of other things with the different plugins that you've got. So I'd recommend taking a look at all the different plugins available, and if you think it's worth grabbing, please use that link in the description below. However, no obligation. So what do you think of the tools that Crocoblock offers? Do you think this is something you could see yourself using in your WooCommerce website development? If so, let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, but don't forget to let me know why you didn't enjoy it in those comments. As always, my name has been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.